Welcome back, everybody, to another Fireside Chat here at the Hapily booth here at Inbound 2024. As you can see, we're at the campsite, kicking it with some of our boys from the app ecosystem with our very real fire marshal certified actual fire that we have here at Camp Hapily. And guys, you know what we're going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about supercharging the quote to cash process inside of HubSpot. Something that we can say in the vanilla version of HubSpot is less than supercharged, right? To put it fairly, I think we can all agree there, right? You know, the word supercharged put aside, you know, we've all built our own like individual solutions on HubSpot that touch the quote to cash process in some way, shape, or form, all in different ways, which is really cool that we're all able to like get together and kind of talk about how, like, you know, all these apps working together can create like a really, really great experience for someone. First though, before we kind of get started, I just want to kind of introduce the panel to the folks watching at home, please. Graham, you want to get started? Just kind of tell the people who you are, where you do it, and who you do it for.
Absolutely. Graham Collins, head of partnerships at QuotaPath. QuotaPath is a commission automation platform, and I oversee partnerships there.
I'm the CTO for S-Docs. We're a fairly newer partner to HubSpot, long-standing partner to Salesforce. Sorry.
All good. It's all good. You're on the good
I won't mention the big blue again.
We're bringing you
I'm part of the HubSpot family now. Long enterprise background. Code to cash has been like ringing in my ears for about 20 years now.
Nice. I'm Max. I'm the chief evangelist here at HubSpot. I do a lot of yelling and screaming on LinkedIn. Oh, not HubSpot. Sorry, Hapily. It feels like I work at HubSpot. I mean, our stuff is so HubSpot native that we may as well just say we work at HubSpot. Anyway.
And I'm Dax, co-founder of Hapily, chief care officer. I care too much. I play too many video games. And I love purple. So that is what matters right now.
It is what matters.
Period.
It looks great on you. So.
I mean, again, I'm glad because it can't be on anybody else. It's me.
You are beautiful in purple. Anyway, guys, so what I want you guys to do is just like real quick. We all have like our individual solutions here. What was it about what you noticed or saw, or like the pain you were hearing around the quote to cash process in HubSpot that kind of like prompted you to say, hey, we need to build the individual magic that our solution provides into HubSpot? What was it that you were seeing, and like, what is the big thing that you guys solve for building that, you know, app or that integration on HubSpot? Graham, you want to kind of kick it off? Tell us that story.
Absolutely. So for us, it was not necessarily the quote to cash process, but really the quote to commission process, right? So we do commission management. And so while that is kind of possible within HubSpot, it gets out of control very, very quickly. Yes, it gets out of control very quickly. If all you're doing is paying 10% flat commission on every deal that closes, you can do it within HubSpot calculated properties. As soon as you add accelerators, or everybody has a different commission tier, or everybody has a different base salary, any of that, it gets out of control very quickly. But all of the data continues to live inside of HubSpot for you to be able to calculate that. Yeah. Usually that's going to be the deal value and the owner and all of that other information that's already being logged by the sales rep. But we just take it and go beyond once the deal has closed, we provide the commission, and even before as well. So as you're creating that quote, you can see how much you would expect in commission off of this deal. You can do those what if simulators. So we saw a lot of opportunity there and decided to dive in.
Nice, awesome. How about you?
Yeah, so I mean, the way I look at it, right, and you know, our history with Salesforce, but we were here at Inbound last year as an attendee. And if you think about quote to cash, at the end of the day, you're going from prospect to a customer that's going to further continue. First, they need to agree to become a customer. You have the NDA. Then you need to know what to sell. That's where CPQ, the quote to cash, the quote part of it comes. Then you need to seal the deal with a contract. And then you need to send them an invoice so that the sales rep can get paid. So you have all those moments. And as a document automation solution, we saw the horizontal that fits into the entire life cycle. And when we saw HubSpot, we were like, yeah, we can do quotes, and that's it. Well, what about everything else?
Yeah.
And that's
There's a lot more paperwork than just quotes, especially when you start going up market and things get a lot more complex.
And that's why we saw the opportunity, and you know, as a former Salesforce employee, I'll say there's a lot of people moving off of Salesforce to HubSpot for a variety of reasons, but we saw the SMB mid-market migration, and we said this is a market we need to tap into. And we said, let's invest.
Let's do it. That's awesome. And now we're here.
Now we're here.
Dax, right? minute an hour. Here, tell us kind of like, we just did quote happily, right?
We're doing it.
What were you, tell me, like, what were you seeing that brought you to the point of saying, oh man, we've got to fix that, right?
Man, coming from, a WordPress, a Shopify, a website, a visual background of just like designs and elements, all those type of projects get so complicated. And then when we talk and look into, we go past CMS and Content Hub, but then when you start to talk about quotes, and as we dabble into payments a little bit, people have a lot of different ways they want to do everything all the time, whether it be how the quote looks, whether it be who can sell what to when for how much, what type of commissions are there. All of these happen all the time, and it's so complex, and people really need to be able to like customize it to a T where it's almost crazy of what a company can need. But we've gone so far past just sending a quote. We're talking about almost a true another house you have, a family member. There's all this stuff that you have to do, and it's a quote to cash is a process. And as we started to understand that it's truly a process and not a button click, then we're like, well, there needs to be some customization, there needs to be flexibility, and that's what quote happily is really about, is having like, I can block, I can alert, I know what's being sold, being able to set alerts and say things based upon a potential commission value, and maybe needs more approval if the commission goes too high. Those things are all pieces of it so that somebody at finance doesn't get hit with a train wreck at the end of the month of, oh no, they sold this much, I don't have the commission, we actually, in the document, they didn't sign the NDA, they didn't sign the MSA, they forgot. What did we do?
Why should we be able to build the quote if they haven't signed the NDA yet?
Right. Why are we even send the quote out?
So like, what's interesting is you're starting to hit here, like, as you're explaining like a lot of things with quote happily, like you're tying it into like what we're doing with commissions, what we're doing with a lot of like document generation, contract lifecycle management, things like this. And like, what's really, really beautiful about this is like HubSpot really provides this common language that allows apps to like integrate with each other without integrating with each other.
Talk to each other.
Exactly. Like HubSpot is the universal translator, right? And it's the I guess central point of truth is what everyone likes to say. But I think like the universal translator to me is like a lot sexier, especially when you start.
It's the hub.
It's the hub. It is.
Somebody has used that before, so they got it.
So talk to me about this. When you guys were building your integrations, your apps with HubSpot, what were some of the things that you took into consideration to like make sure the way that you were putting the data into HubSpot, or the way in which, the users in HubSpot were interacting with your stuff, what sort of decisions did you make around the way you built that integration that like made it speak that common language, right? Like maybe beyond like, what properties are we filling, things like that.
Yeah, so ours was pretty straightforward, and it's one of the more straightforward components of commission calculation. Is you really only need a few different pieces of information. You need to know what you're paying on, who to pay, when to pay, and that when to pay is also a little bit nuanced and kind of goes to the speaking the universal language there, because a lot of that original data already lives within HubSpot. The deal value, the close date, the owner, all of that information. One thing that we're dealing with now is the idea that not every one of our customers pays their reps as soon as the deal closes, right? A lot of them pay when the implementation is complete, or they pay when the invoice is paid, or when the invoice is sent, or when the second invoice is paid, or all of these other different things that relate to exactly when you pay the rep. So they may have earned the $1,000 commission, but they get paid when the customer pays, and the customer pays quarterly, or whatever it may be. And so by HubSpot pulling all of that additional data in as well, especially some of the Commerce Hub work that's been going out like crazy recently, is we can then pull all of that from HubSpot so that we don't have to try to marry that data on our end, where we pull in information from QuickBooks or we pull in information from Stripe. That all lives within HubSpot, and so we can continue to speak that universal language.
Yeah, that's a lot. And what sort of like decisions did you make about like resurfacing that data from from QuotaPath like back into HubSpot so the reps can like see it, right? And like know like, oh, what kind of commission am I getting on this? Like things like that.
So we historically used a component within the HubSpot on the deal record called a deal card. It's a small card. It only provided a little bit of information. We couldn't do any actions. You couldn't really do a whole lot of cool stuff with it. I think we've actually talked about it. I think you and I met about it. I know you and I met about it. But what we launched yesterday was the idea of this app card, or app cards, where we can actually show information specific to the rep, specific to the admin, directly within the CRM, directly on the deal. Not only just showing that, but showing the actionability within there, showing that they can actually take actions there. Reps can approve their earnings once they feel like it's correct. Admins can flag those deals. They can resolve issues. They can override information. And so having that all within HubSpot is a game changer for us, because RevOps doesn't want to create another step that somebody has to do, right? Like, you want to be invisible. As a good RevOps person, you're invisible and you just make everything, make magic in the background. And so that's one of the reasons that we decided to invest really heavily in this, showing the reps how much they have earned, how much they could earn off of those deals directly on the deal record.
Awesome. Ron, talk to me.
One thing, and again, we decided first and foremost, S-Docs actually does not store any data, customer data on our site. We said, your data is in HubSpot, you've put it there for a reason, safe, secure.
Yep.
We're not going to take that data out.
Yeah.
The only thing we want to have is metadata about you, which is like what type of template. Like, think about a customer that's doing a $500,000 contract. There's some sensitive stuff in there. The last thing I want to do is hold that on my side. God forbid something happens. So security was utmost for us. HubSpot had that security built, so we actually don't hold any data. The second part that I thought was useful was, and this was learnings from our Salesforce experience, end of the day, people want automation. If a rep doesn't have to click a damn button, that's what they want. We dig so deep into workflows to the point where someone moves the deal stage over, a quote's created, a MSA ready for signature, even send it, it's all there. The rep doesn't have to do anything. And if they get paid, QuotaPath's already knowing them. Like, that's the best thing, is the best tool is one that you don't have to tell it to do, it does it for you.
Yeah, and I love that, like, you guys are leaning heavily into workflows, because whereas like properties and objects and data represented in HubSpot is kind of like the words, the workflows are more like the thoughts and action, that collective hive mind takes, right? So like, what sort of like thoughts did you, or what sort of like tactics did you take in terms of like, what type of automation are we building into workflows? Like, what sort of scenarios people are using them in, and like how are they interacting with those
So our two major use cases are document generation and e-signature requests. And we said, let's have actions to those two.
Nice.
Make it configurable that no one should have to go to S-Docs to do anything. Right? Just put it in the workflow. It's there, ready. The rep's like, oh, you got the email already? Oh, well, how did that come? That's kind of the experience, because salespeople are lazy. So if I can make them extra lazy.
Yeah, no, Brian and Joe are super lazy. I can attest to that. Don't hate me. No, and I love that, because like what's really cool too is I think like you guys are really leaning in on your side of the app of what you guys are really good at, which is the document generation. But then like you're leaving a lot of the stuff that like frankly you probably could build into your app, right? But you're like, why not just build that functionality where the users actually are, right? Yeah.
I'll give you one example, right? So the one that Graham brought up, right? Contract is signed, I want to pay. Today, if you have to do that, I have to have someone, my rep has to go update a field. Hey, contract is signed, they signed it on this date. What we do as part of e-signature is write back when they signed and say there's a PO number, so that QuotaPath can say, hey, I can trigger a workflow to say, go calculate the commissions, schedule up. So no one did anything, operations didn't do anything, the sales rep didn't do anything, the customer just signed.
There you go.
You're all in. And this would start with coding. Code's ready, kick it off.
Let's kick it over to you. And now here, I'm going to flip this question on you a little bit. I'm going to flip a little bit, right? We talked about speaking the common language, right? Obviously with Quote Happily, we're speaking the common language kind of already because it's native HubSpot quoting, right? But I want to talk to you about speaking a common design language, right? Because it was really, really important for us to make Quote Happily feel like native HubSpot through the design language, if you will, right? And kind of how we're doing that. Talk to me about like what brought us to that decision of like, we're gonna make this thing look like HubSpot, feel like HubSpot, and like, why is that like super important, right?
The design, as you're speaking, especially with the advent of UI extensions, I can see what this process kind of looks like. I can see how we have our card, we make the quote single page. I get blocked. I can only add the right things. I'm looking at the right price books. I hit click, go, and QuotaPath UI extension. Once mine closes, I can see QuotaPath UI extension update with the commission structure, with the thing. I know my documents are gone. And again, with that design architecture, making things feel native, the sales rep isn't confused. They're not leaving HubSpot. They don't have to learn new software. They don't know oh, I'm looking for an orange button. Now it's a green button somewhere. Oh, I don't have to do anything like that. Then also that what is so visual and vivid in my head as I think of this process is now I see the workflow, because we'll have our approval workflow that'll say, well, now it needs to go to approval. We have an approval workflow action that allows you to do one or sequential. And then finance has approved, but then your workflow action hits to send out the NDA. Once the NDA is signed, then you can have operations approve it in product, and then have separate approval. So there's just, you can see the UI extensions, you can see all the design, it all feels like HubSpot. Now I'm in the workflow builder, again, already just making the puzzle pieces. So we got the Legos, we know what the Lego set looks like, and everybody knows that it's orange and bleeding orange. So that process and the way that all of these apps, like, we have to do this again on the internet and build this all out live, because I can see it and I can't not, like,
We should do that.
we
totally.
need to do that, because I can just see it. And that's the beauty of speaking the common language.
Yep.
Workflows, UI extensions, not like tucked away in a little pillowcase card, but you actually have a full view of, I'm going to get this commission, I'm splitting it, because I know we got to talk about deal splitting. Like, I'm going to split it with this person, I'm going to see what's like. Here's the process of where it's at. And one of the things that we had to add was all these steps. There's lots of steps. It's fine as long as no one's clicking any buttons. But where is this quote in that process? And we have a kind of a timeline of, like, it's waiting for approval. It's up, it's going to be approved. And we know that after approval from finance, it's going to get, the NDA is out. So we see a timeline of where the quote is at. So the rep is not, I sent the quote. I'm like, am I going to get paid? When's the pay? All this stuff. And
That's not quoting confidently.
yeah, it's not quoting confident. I just hope it's going to get, I hope it's going to get through. But we've all set our puzzle pieces and all of our bells and whistles in motion so that the rep can click the button and they can check in if they feel like it. But then there's no question, there's no concern, there's no missing steps, there's no misunderstandings, because I'm sure knife fights are what commission really ends up, either money or knife fights. So there's all of that is kind of the biggest thing about the design and how vivid and how it looks. So if anybody out here inbound would look at it, they'd be like, yeah, this is HubSpot. And they may not know there's all these different apps.
Well, and it helps with, like, adoption too, right? Like, I'm sure you guys have seen, like, the new stuff that's going out into public apps now, where, like, public apps can finally do those, like, record extensions that feel and look like HubSpot, and they give you those components, and, like, it just feels like it's new native functionality in there, right? And, like, for us to be able to build it through those sort of, like, design cues, I feel like are going to help adoption so much more, because it's like, oh, this looks familiar, I kind of already know how to use it, even though technically it's like another tool, right? And that's a way better experience than having to go into another app and, like, have that, you know, almost take you out of your HubSpot body, if you will, and have this, like, out of app experience that can be jarring sometimes.
Just write that down.
Yeah.
Out of app experience. Just write it down.
All right, I'm gonna flip. Oh, wait, did you want to add something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I want to flip gears a little bit, right? So, like, our apps are all kind of in, like, a pretty good place right now, right? Like, we finally got through development. This thing is live. It's out in the world, right? You guys have had your integrations out there. Tell me a story about something that went incredibly wrong when you were building it, right? Take us to, let's unload some trauma here. Tell me about, like, what was a really big bump in the road that you guys experienced, like, either taking your integration from, like, concept to reality, or something in the early days, and, like, how'd you guys overcome it?
Yeah, I have one that is, we have a wonderful engineering team. We have an amazing engineering team. Engineers, and engineers are very, very rarely on variable compensation plans, right? Commission plans. Very rarely. Even though I tried to get our team to pay based on number of lines of code, and they said, actually, that's the opposite of what we want. And I said, okay, then pay them on the fewest lines of code to ship, and they were like, that's even worse. And I was like, okay, all right, I don't know how to do it. Yeah, and so what that means is that engineers tend to not really understand compensation plans, and the how intense the privacy of those are as well. You know, that a lot of times different reps have different comp plans. They get different paid commissions. They have different base salaries, and so, fortunately, we never actually pushed it to production, but we have had situations where an engineer didn't understand that we can't have this be exposed to everyone. We can't have an SDR log in and see how much the VP of sales is making, or directly within HubSpot, pushing that information in. So we have to be very careful about that, because compensation is so private. It is a very confidential thing, but different parts of it, like quota attainment, is not necessarily private, unless it is. Like, unless somebody wants it to be, because then it's like, oh, we all have different quotas, and I don't know what Dax's quota is, but I know what Max. And so we have to be very careful with that. We have to be very careful with what we expose, where we expose it. And then we have it all figured out in our app. Then pushing it into HubSpot is a whole other thing, because of different permissions. You can be a HubSpot admin, but not a QuotaPath admin. You can be a QuotaPath admin, but not a HubSpot admin. What lives where? How do you see it?
And you kind of got to reinvent the way you think about how you're, surfacing or not surfacing that stuff.
So nothing went wrong,
yeah,
but could have.
Okay, yeah, I love that. I love the outlook.
I mean, we had a similar moment where it was more of a late night coding problem than anything else, where someone flipped it on and everyone could see everyone else's contracts. The last thing you want to know is how much they get paid. But hey, this rep actually has a $800,000 pipeline that's in the late stage. Oh shit, I got this can get pretty bad for sales guys. But for us, I think we were very new to the HubSpot ecosystem. So when we started to build our stuff, there was some stuff in the API that I'm like, okay, how do we invent this? And I was giving some feedback to the product guys. Like, putting a document together might be easy, but if you have like pieces of information that's coming from 6 different records, associations and all that, it took a while to kind of figure out and get this right. And for us, the biggest struggle was we needed to be completely customer schema aware. So I could be in an enterprise customer that has 14 custom objects and a starter pack customer that has no custom objects. I should work the same. That took quite a bit of engineering, and it took us almost a release to kind of get that right, but we got it right.
Yeah, that's a big one. Associations work very weird. And you
Yeah.
have to pull out, it's a little thing. That's unique.
How about, Dax, what was the big oh shit moment for us when we were building
starting, finishing. So what's very common in this ecosystem, and we talk about for that people that are looking to come into the ecosystem, is it's the early days. It's us three sitting around a campfire, talking shop on building a new UI extension. And in 5 years, they'll be like, they didn't always have that. And both of us went through the, hey, we want to do this. That API doesn't exist. And you're like,
Deal split. That was one that we had.
Deal splits. And for us, it was, Quote Happily was so good, we built it twice. There was that e-signature for the quotes, didn't have an API. And that's very key in the quote. You need to be able to click to sign. And if you can't do that, then how do you do anything? So we went on this brave mission for a Chrome extension, because that was the only way to interact with the current quote process. And built it, got it to beta, and magically released the API that we needed 3-4 months ago. And we're like, we can continue on this path and we do it right. And we did it right. So we rebuilt the entire quoting experience from HubSpot, from the 6 pages that it is now, to a single page builder within a card, and now which will soon be in a UI extension to have even more flexibility, but had to build it twice. So it didn't even break. We just had to throw it in the trash, recycle bin, and understand what have we learned on the way. We're building an entirely new kind of stack, and it's worth the wait, because it's very worth the wait to do it right, and do it right the second time.
Because you know what not to build the second time.
Oh yeah, done everything. We're like, well, this is the way to go, and it's because we're so early, because we're all building the Legos, and this is going to be just canon for everybody moving forward, coming into the ecosystem. Associations will get cleaned up; they'll know it. All the APIs will be available, so people are just going to be able to extend and join in this conversation of this native tongue, which is HubSpot. So that was one. Like you didn't know, but that was a problem.
Yeah, no, it was. So we had partner day yesterday. They talked about a lot of stuff coming out. We've got obviously, or not yesterday, the day before. We had the product keynote yesterday. A lot of stuff coming from HubSpot. I'm sure you've been talking to product managers and maybe seeing some of this other stuff coming out in the demos or the spotlight stuff, lots of new APIs coming out. Have you seen anything at the show this year that gets you thinking about how you're going to innovate on your integration? Like, is there something you want to add, something you want to do now that you weren't able to do before, something that's like making you think a little bit differently about how it's deployed today and how it could be better? Anything that you're seeing? Ideas popping into your head?
So I think that I guess we'll check off the bingo card of AI here.
Full covered.
Yeah, exactly. We might as well talk about it. I'm intrigued. I'm curious. I'm intrigued. I'm, dare I say, suspicious of AI.
Start having to pay quota to some of those prospecting agents,
Yeah,
dude.
I know.
Yeah,
Those agents, those are going to start getting commission. No, and I'm really curious how that will affect the sales process and how that will affect the deal closing process. Not only that, but then, I know that they didn't talk about it. It's one of the things they didn't talk about was a lot of how it's going to impact deals. But I think that there's a lot of impact to deals, and specifically things like stages. Stages haven't changed at least since I've been working in sales. You have demo set and then demo help. But like, why do we have those? If a tool can go through and say, this is the likelihood of you closing this deal, like, we know this is the likelihood. Maybe you can modify it a little bit, but like, we didn't see that. And that's something that I think could be out there. And then for me personally, that affects it because of a lot of that stuff about commissions, where I say, hey, you're going to earn $10,000 off of this deal, and you have a 50% chance of closing it. But if you do these 9 things, it's going to increase it to an 80% chance. If you're going to earn 10 grand on that, you're going to go do those things immediately. So it changes that behavior because of the earnings. And if we are able to surface that earnings into changing the behavior, that's what's going to be really interesting to me. Again, didn't really see a whole lot of that, but it sounds like there were hints of it being in the future.
Yeah, I want to get at the end of this, I want to get everyone's thoughts on that prospecting agent, because like it touches a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. So it'd be interesting here. But what are you excited about?
I mean, more than AI, I think the word that comes to mind is agentic.
Yep.
Like, 2 large conferences happened this week, and we happen to be in both. Yep. But someone in LinkedIn, if you're listening, go do a word count of AI and agents being uttered this week. It's going to be off the roof. But my point is, HubSpot's building the agent platform, but there's steps of automation. Like, I come as a rep, I want to ask a question, how far am I from my quota? That's an agent.
Yep.
I'm a sales rep, and I'm like, hey, can you put up a quote with these products at 2% discount? That's an agent.
It'd be like, no, you cannot.
Yeah.
There are rules now.
Well, it should be smart enough to understand the rules and ask questions. Right? Like, and for us, it's how can document become a step in the agent's automation?
Yep.
Again, I don't want to click a button. Yes, it's a workflow, but I have to do something. What if I have to do something? I'm like, create a code, include these people as signatures, send it out. I'm speaking to an agent, an autonomous agent, and send it out. To me, that is the opportunity. Yeah. HubSpot and platforms like that are building the agent surface area. Yeah. I think up to app partners, if we can plug into those, hint to them, we become sticky to them, and they become sticky to us.
You know what's kind of interesting about the way you were kind of framing that is like, when HubSpot talks a lot about this AI stuff, I think they're very careful to put the messaging out there that like, we're not trying to replace your job. We want people co-creating with AI. And then when you think about, the prospecting agent and like some of these other AI like tools and stuff, it's almost thinking about, maybe that's not replacing the BDR, but maybe it's just a little companion for you to co-sell with, right? Versus like replacing someone else or anything like that. And
Dharmesh last year at the keynote had a quote that I've used several times, which is AI is going to take your job and give you a better one.
Yeah.
And that's truly like, that's how I feel about it, is that it's going to take your job, that prospecting. I had a team of prospecting specialists at my last company. I had a team of 8 people, fresh out of college. Their job was to go out and prospect. And they would move into an SDR after 3 or 4 months, but that was their job. all 8 of those people could be replaced by one agent nowadays.
Well, AI, a lot of people think about artificial intelligence. I think the word that I use is it's augmented intelligence. It's not artificial, it's augmented. It's augmenting your job. It's augmenting your process. And if you think about it that way, the world is your possibility.
I mean, the Dewey Decimal System was the way to find a book. And that is, some people don't even know what that is. And then Google came and I could find information pretty quick. That had a long run. Now I can find the information to find my answer. And now I can just find the answer. And the answer comes right to me. And when you take out all that steps, all you're doing is speeding up the process to information. You're speeding up the process to execution. You're not, somebody still needs to execute. I need to do that. But like you said, there are some things like prospecting is just finding and sifting through information to find the right answer or the right person to then execute on. And now you can just get the right people to execute on and even sprinkle in some you're about to get executed on. And then now they get it. So the magic 2 words is just another tool to get the information and how you use it and how we can plug into it. What is that bucket of information it's talking to? That's why search results, everybody's mad because they're tapping into they got my website information. They didn't even go to my site though. And that's kind of a different way that people are going to interact with HubSpot, with anything. I don't have to go all the way into our quote builder to build a quote. I want to make sure that there's a rule where they can't discount more than 10% and only for companies in Germany and more than 5 line items to approval go. I don't have to do the clicking, but they're tapped into what we have built. So the important part is understanding what part of the machine, what part of the experience rather, is the AI versus our spirits creating. And that's the difference. And it looks like there will be, this is early on, there will be a platform that we can tap into to get people to execute with our creations faster.
Yeah. I'm gonna hold you to the API question real quick, right? Were there any new or upcoming like APIs that like you've been dying for? And same thing, if you guys had anything you were like looking out for, anything that you've been dying for that you saw like finally is here?
I smelled a webhook, custom object webhook API. Smelled that.
Yep.
That one is fantastic.
That's gonna be huge, even for like a pen half.
There's a little bit of sprinkling of some tax API. Need some of that because again, are you getting commission on the taxes? How much are the taxes? Do you know that? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Is it total price net? How's that work?
It's like tipping culture. You tip on the tax, that's
They do, yeah. Do you get taxes on tip like that? I do, I guess but those are
anyone's asking me about now. They go, "Oh, can it automate the taxes?" And I'm like, "It's a week old. Give it a minute." Yeah,
the biggest one. So custom object webhooks is going to be amazing. Some of the stuff that we're looking to do for templates and associations to templates. So for the nerds out there, quote template references and object code is different than CRM object reference and association code. So kind of cleaning that up, talking to a few people, but I'm really excited about, again, the tools that are being opened up so that everyone can create and not come to roadblocks where you're like, I have to figure this one out. I have to call somebody and get some special treatment and make things work. So again, early days, it's growing. We're a part of it as the sausage is being made.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
it's awesome. All right, last question here, and we're gonna do our duty as HubSpot app partners to gas up HubSpot a little bit here, right? But in a way that feels genuine to you, right? We've talked a lot about quote to cash and all the amazing stuff that like we're doing, and quote to commission, but getting all this stuff plugged into HubSpot. What is the argument for companies to like take the effort and time and configuration and setup and maybe even working with a partner or a couple of different app providers? Why should they go through that to bring their quote to cash process on HubSpot? Like, what's your best argument for that, right? Or if someone's on the fence, what would you say to try to convince them that like this is a good place for all that stuff to live and a great place for your team to work?
Yeah, and I'm sure that you'll have a different perspective coming from Salesforce, having spent a lot of time in the Salesforce ecosystem. I haven't spent a lot of time in the Salesforce ecosystem, so I'll let you comment on that, because that's where a lot of people are going to be coming from. Is if they do come, they're going to be coming from Salesforce. It's something that Yamini said yesterday, Andy Petrie said yesterday, Dharmesh said yesterday. Everybody is saying this is easy, fast, and unified, and that's what it comes down to. Is
Stole my answer.
A tool, I know. Don't worry, I'm giving you plenty of time to think of a better one. Easy, fast, unified. It's a tool that is not difficult to use. It gets done quickly. Our implementations of HubSpot customers are less than half as long as a different CRM's customers. And unified by adding the app cards, by adding extensibility, by adding all of these things. It all lives within one place, but not in a just built by HubSpot way. It used to be, all in one is the way that HubSpot used to be talked about. All on one is how it's being talked about now, and it's because of easy, fast, and unified.
I'll use the three-word kind of answer in a different way, right?
It's better than Salesforce.
Totally. I still have a lot of stock in them. Look, they're a great platform, different paradigm, but we'll keep that. So to me, and again, I come out of experience both of implementing Salesforce, but also at S-Docs. It's automate, extend, be happy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm kind of like giving you guys a plug-in, but I think that's the cool thing. Like, to me, like I said, the best tool that a sales rep can use is the one they don't have to use.
Yeah.
If you can automate a lot of stuff, they have more time selling. And there's a metric of the 100% time that a salesperson's spending, 75% of that time is spent on non-selling activities.
Yep.
75%.
Yeah.
25% on selling. If you can take more and more of that so that they can go have the meeting, have the call, close business,
Yep.
they make more commission, more quotes, everyone's happy, right? Like, I think to me it's automate, be extensible, right? Build a platform that's extensible, build a solution that's extensible, and at the end of the day, your users are going to be happy. Like that, those are the three core tenets.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you think a lot about like sales burnout and attrition. It's like, creating a good experience for that person to actually do their job is so important because you don't want to create friction for the most basic things they should be able to do, right? And it's almost as if you're saying like, you gotta get them into the tool in order to let the tool get out of their way, right? And actually be able to sell, right? Dax, why don't you round us out? Why HubSpot? Why QuotaPath? Why get it all on there?
So with all the technology and how fast it's moving, I say air quotes, but it's like lightning speed. We think about the dawn of time. We think about the 1900s, 100 years ago. What does it look like? And now, what 2 years ago look like? What does today look like? We are yearning for this experience factor. We're on earth for a short time. We want to have great experiences. We want to experience others and the spirits combined, and we want to resonate positivity. When you're drowning in technology, when you're drowning in all these how-tos and things, your experience falls flat. And I think the experience in combination with the community of HubSpot makes it the place, because this is different than other conferences. And I know that it's factual, everyone says it, everyone feels it, and we're feeling it here sitting around a campfire. Like, HubSpot is more than the tool itself. Anything is more than the tool itself, but this community, it's what you create, and they've created a community, and it's up to us to continue to, because again, it's early days. There's only 4 of us around the campfire. There should be a lot. It's up to us, and it's our duty to build out this community of people that care about experience, care about the end user, care about the sales rep, cares about the rev ops, cares about the top, cares about the people that are behind the scenes. And I believe that all of these combined with the technology and the people is what makes HubSpot better. Yeah. Period.
I have a tagline for all three companies if you guys want to hear. Love it. Can you code happily, contract happily, and get paid happily?
Whoa.
I like it.
Only on HubSpot.
It's only on HubSpot. You can't do that anywhere else. And that's why we're here. And we always stay here.
That's probably a future webinar for us.
The webinar's happening.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you
Thanks,
so much,
Max.
man. Dax, as always. Guys, thank you for watching this lively discussion around supercharging your quote to cash process on HubSpot and quote to commission process on HubSpot. I'm not forgetting about it. QTC all day, every day. Join us back here for another one of these campfire sessions. We're going to have a whole bunch of them, and enjoy the rest of the inbound, everybody.